Okay. Yes. Very good. To begin with, I know I said a fortnight in the last video, but then as I was uploading the last video, I realized that I was a week late, so I'm trying to get back on schedule, and only a week has passed since our last chat together. Welcome to Trailing Edge of a Generation. This week I'm going to try to say a little bit less, although I just cut them all out at the end. This week the subject is called subscribe, and even though it looks like I'm looking at a computer screen, I am looking at a computer screen. There's no script. I am improvising. I've just got notes here. Look up here. Here's a screenshot of my notes. Okay. Story one is about John Deere, a guy who bought used sawmill blades. We're talking about these really big ones that are circular probably, and beat the shit out of them until he made plowshares that were good to use in, I think it was Illinois soil, which is black and sticky and tended to stick to cast iron plows. But with these new, don't know if it was stainless steel or not, but saw blade based plowshares, the black earth didn't stick to them, and that was how John Deere got started. Dirt and saw blades and beating the shit out of them. Although I said it a lot while living here in Spain, I never did visit the John Deere factory in Moline, Illinois. I think it's there. I never drove a John Deere combine harvester at the age of 16. That was other kids that I went to school with that did that kind of thing. But these were stories that I told that were useful when I was working here in Spain in a small agricultural machinery import company. Our main business was to search for and find used John Deere combine harvesters, bring them to Spain, and sell them at a profit. The profit often came because buying one of these machines outside of Spain, the buyer here, if he was able to buy it, or even my company, we didn't have to pay sales tax because we were buying outside of Spain, and sales tax within a year of starting up the business rose to 21%. So let's say the machine cost 100,000 euros, 21,000 euros only in sales tax. Another advantage was that the machinery that we bought from other countries, like especially France and England, tended to be in better shape than the same machinery here in Spain. Seems Spanish people beat the hell out of their machines, while the English and the French tended to use their machines less hours and treated them better and traded them in before they were breaking down. Breaking down, that's important to remember. Breaking down, that means you beat the shit out of those ball bearings to get them out and put in new ball bearings yourself. You repair the machine while you're working. There's always work to be done. You can't be waiting on someone from John Deere to come out and charge you 100, 150 euros an hour to repair your machine when you can do it yourself. Or can you? So while we were moving through the years, I started at this business in 2009, I think, 2010. We were buying machines that were more modern than the Spanish machines that we took in exchange or as a part of the down payment for the machines. But there came a moment, and I think it was like 2017, 2018, when the machines started to come with more fancy things like GPS control, GPS towers, so that you could harvest on straight lines down to millimeters or maybe only meters. I'm not sure. In any case, these apparatus that were stuck on the tower in the cabin came with a subscription. You had to have a password for them. Well, at first it was a password. You simply bought the password, and you had the password, and you could use this to then have access to the GPS system. But as time went on, and we closed down the business in 2021 or 22, don't remember exactly, we found that machines newer than 2020, 2022, those machines now came with this strange subscription. subscription service. That is, the machine wouldn't work unless you bought a yearly subscription for the software that was necessary to make the machine work. What's more, to have the machine repaired, you had to take it to an official John Deere dealership. There was one in our small provincial capital, actually. You had to take it there, and you had to have the subscription for them to be able to plug their diagnosis computer into the onboard computer of the combine in order to be able to make the repairs, and you couldn't make those repairs. Now, I found an article at a place called agriland.co.uk is John Deere's future business model subscription. This is from January of this year, 2025. Throughout the article, while they explain that John Deere was presenting its material at the Consumer Electronics Show. That's not an agricultural fair where you go and you see pigs and cows and a lot of big machinery that you know that you can't afford to buy if you're a normal farmer. And what caught my eye was more or less the last paragraph, and I'm going to read that last paragraph for you. Links in the description. While all this technology may sound good and futuristic, a basic feature of it all is that it requires a subscription-based service, moving John Deere's business model to one of a recurring revenue stream rather than simply selling capital items. While there may be many advantages to the customer there, it is still undeniable that management and ownership of the machines that are relied upon for farm operations will no longer be in the hands of the farmer, and that may be a deal breaker for many. And from that I get my subtitle to this episode, which is, Are We in a World of Non-Ownership? Okay, so keep that in your head. John Deere, agricultural machinery manufacturer, one of the largest in the world, let's say, is basing its business model on subscription service. Okay, let's go to the second story. The Publishers Clearinghouse Sweepstakes. I mentioned these in an episode called How I Found Out My Dad Died or something like that. Link will be in the description, of course, or you can go look it up on the podcast playlist on Spotify. So, Publishing Clearinghouse Sweepstakes. So, we're talking about something that started around 1968. I might have written down a date here. No, I didn't write down a date. I don't know when the Publishers Clearinghouse Sweepstakes began, but I do remember that we would get this big fat envelope with a lot of pieces of paper in it, and one of the pieces of paper was like a light cardboard, and on this piece of paper there were several little spaces, and in these several little spaces you could take from the other pieces of paper little stickers or stamps like S&H green stamps, and lick them and stick them on, and these would be magazines that you wanted to subscribe to. The thing is, you didn't need to subscribe to a magazine in order to participate in the sweepstakes, and so my mom would send in the sweepstakes entry form, which was basically, don't put any magazine stickers, but do put the sweepstakes sticker, put your name and address and all of this, and close it up and put it back in the mail. No postage necessary. They were paying bulk postage at the time. So we never won that sweepstakes, and it would be interesting to hear of my confusion with it in that episode I mentioned, How My Dad Died. But the whole thing was just this odd scheme in order to have an excuse. Actually, it was an excuse to send out this mass mailing every month, trying to get subscribers to pay money monthly for different magazines, like Time Magazine, I don't know, well, yes, I think Life Magazine, maybe National Geographic, maybe Good Housekeeping, Better Homes and Gardens, magazines, things that might still exist. I think they do. Don't see them very often. I don't know if I have any magazines right. Yes, look, I've got a magazine. Look. This is a magazine. And this magazine, well, for those who are listening, I'm holding up a magazine called Geo. And let's see what date this magazine has on it. Whoa. Only Spain. I don't see a date. That's really weird. Well, Magazines exist. I don't think my family ever subscribed to any magazine. We just sent in the sweepstakes. We never won. Okay. Some magazines, including Time magazine, did either take them to court, Publishers Clearinghouse, but most probably simply mounted their own clearinghouse when Publishers Clearinghouse refused to share any profits that they were making by selling these subscriptions. So let's say a subscription is $10 a month. I don't know how much it would be in 1968, 69 when this was going on, but $10 a month. And Publishers Clearinghouse had to pay Time magazine $5 a month, which was the regular subscription fee, or maybe a reduced fee because Publishers Clearinghouse was selling the subscription for Time magazine. Time magazine didn't have to bother selling the subscriptions. And Time magazine wanted more of that, a bigger chunk of that money. Publishers Clearinghouse refused to do so, so Time magazine and other magazines grouped together and made their own clearinghouse to distribute their material. Keep that in mind. The third story is about cable TV. Cable TV was something that it may still exist, I don't know. Nowadays, almost everybody has fiber optics in their home with a Wi-Fi router, but cable TV was something that existed in the late 1960s, the 70s, maybe the 80s, 90s. I don't know. I didn't have that much contact with it. It was a cable that came into your house. It plugged into some kind of little black box, a decodifier, an unscrambler. I don't remember what they called those boxes, but in any case, if I find it, I'll leave a word up here for those who are watching on YouTube. It was basically a physical landline antenna that allowed you to subscribe to a number of programs that were offered over cable. Now, I think basic cable probably came with just your basic HBO, MTV, the local TV station that they were required to give access to people. This system was often pirated. So the cable would come in and go into your box, but when they came out of that box, it would go up and plug into the antenna connection, I think, in your old-fashioned TV, the big ones that weighed 10,000 pounds. But that cable, if you were clever enough, could be spliced out, and you could run a cable to someone else. And my connection with that was my Uncle Jerry having spliced out a cable connection from an apartment above his basement apartment. It was one of those big residential houses in a university city that had been divided into different apartments for university students. And I think my uncle lived free in that apartment because he took care, he was like the maintenance man for the apartments above him. So he simply dropped a cable down to the basement from the cable TV that the entire house had, and we had cable TV. I only used it to see A Coal Miner's Daughter at least 36 times, a stray Clint Eastwood movie here or there, the Tony Awards a couple of times, but I wasn't a big TV guy. And beyond that connection with it, I never really used cable TV at all. But the curious thing is, you didn't pay the producers of the programs, you paid the cable company that plugged you in. And then you could pay more and more subscription method. If you wanted MTV, or if you wanted, well, I don't think it existed back then, but the Disney Channel, for example, you could pay a little bit more. So there was like a basic service that you paid this much money for every month, and then you could get more stuff by paying more subscription fees. Bookmark that in your mind as well. We're talking about subscribing, and the theme came to me because of Jimmy Kimmel. I'm not going to go too much into the whole Jimmy Kimmel fiasco. By the time this hits the internet, which is next Monday, everything's been said. Except one thing that I still haven't seen said. So, it's what Jimmy Kimmel actually said. His words, and how we've lost the capacity to understand them, I think. His words: "The MAGA gang is desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it." Let's parse this sentence a bit. The MAGA gang, we know who that is desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk. So, the MAGA gang is trying to characterize Charlie Kirk's murderer as anything other than one of them. And that is absolutely true, or it was true at the time. The MAGA gang was openly shouting to the four corners of the earth that it was the left, the radical left. They were doing that, and Jimmy Kimmel was simply saying, this is what they are doing. And it is absolutely true that they were doing everything they could to score political points. None of this is... Jimmy Kimmel inferred that the killer of Charlie Kirk was MAGA. No. There's nothing. In no moment does Jimmy Kimmel even slightly infer that Robinson is MAGA. He says clearly that MAGA, the subject of the sentence, is desperately trying to characterize this kid as anything but MAGA, which is natural. They don't want him to be MAGA. And they're trying to score political points. When aren't they trying to score political points? It's all true, and everything every other outlet of news has said about this has not pointed that out. There's nothing offensive there. It's a simple statement of what was going on at the time. Let's remember that following that, there was the jab at Donald Trump, who, instead of expressing grief or even empathy for the murdering of his good friend Charlie Kirk, he talked about the ballroom that he's chopped down presidential trees to build. It's a pity that they can't get that stopped. The reaction to this, whatever the interpretation of Jimmy Kimmel's words were, was taking him off the air, suspending him. There was a lot of, he got fired, it's the end of the Jimmy Kimmel show. No, he was suspended, and that was honestly put forward, but the interpretation of he is suspended went out of whack as well. I think one of our problems is that we're so used to listening to a certain world leader, that's between air quotes, world leader, using word salads that make no sense, that we've lost the capacity to actually understand what is being said to us. We're always looking for second meanings or trying to find any meaning in the words being said to us. And when somebody says something very clearly, albeit a complex sentence, we are becoming unable to simply take the sentence at face value. MAGA tried to communicate that the assassin was not MAGA, and tried to earn political points doing so. That doesn't mean that the kid was MAGA. In order to get the guy back on the air, Jimmy Kimmel, there was a huge public movement, which I am very pleased with, and a lot of people are pleased with, that involved unsubscribing from Disney Plus, maybe from Disney World, maybe unsubscribing. I think Hulu came into the unsubscribing thing. The whole message was hit them with their wallet. The customer is always right. I'm paying, I'm right because I'm the customer. You're wrong. I don't like what you're saying or doing, and so I'm going to stop paying you. Unsubscribe. That's it. But my question is, why were you subscribed in the first place? What do you get out of subscribing? What does subscribing look like to me? In Spanish, the word for what you see when you turn on Netflix to look for a series or a movie, that thing you see, those little thumbnail pictures with titles of movies and series, that thing is called a parrilla. Parrilla is the metal grate that you use to barbecue food. San Lorenzo, who is the patron saint of my nearby provincial capital, was killed on a parrilla. It's in the church floor, and it's in the sidewalk before the church. I think it's even hanging above the church. There's a parrilla. That is a grill grate. Okay, so that thing that you see is called a parrilla, a grill grate. And Subscription to me is, what are we going to see? What are we going to watch? Well, I don't know. Well, let's look. And spending at least half an hour scrolling through all of the different programs that you could possibly see and finally choosing one. This happened at my brother-in-law's house. We were there on a special visit. They live 2.5 hours from where I live. Somebody said, well, why don't we watch a movie? Okay, let's watch a movie. We turn on, let's say it was Netflix, and we probably spent half an hour scrolling among all of the different programs that were available, finding it very hard to find something that would please everyone, and ending up watching a documentary about some guy who made friends with an octopus. It was okay, but it was slow and boring. That's what subscription to a television offering looks like to me. I mean, HBO back in the 70s, they had a program schedule. So if you wanted to see Coal Miner's Daughter, you could see it at 8 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and 10 o'clock at night on these days. And then they would switch to another movie. So you might have had 3 or 4 opportunities to see the movie in that day, but the next day there'd be another 2 or 3 opportunities, maybe in a different time slot. You didn't have to choose anything except the time slot that you wanted to see the movie that they had available. And because there's only 24 hours in a day, how many movies could they put up at 90 minutes a movie back then? Well, hour and a half, you do the maths. What we have now is this strange Pluto and other things like Pluto, but Pluto I think is international, so you'll know what I'm talking about, which is like a free Netflix, but it's for people who haven't subscribed yet to Netflix. And so what Pluto does is they give you the parrilla, the barbecue grate, and you pass through it and you see dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of movies and series that you have never heard of. You have never heard of the actors in them. The series don't have all of the seasons. The series might have one season or stray episodes from different seasons. It's all free, but it's basically a way to condition people to what they're going to get, what to expect when they finally break down and pay the 30 to 60 to 150 euros a month to subscribe for the good stuff. The good stuff, which takes you half an hour to scroll through to find something that everybody in the family is going to like. Subscription to me is like a monthly fee in exchange for 2 or 3 hours of use every once in a while. I mean, I myself would not watch TV every day. Here in Spain, the TV is on a lot. Not in my house, but people tend to turn on the TV and leave it on all the time. And I've got a sister-in-law whose TV is always on, and she's always looking at some series that she's paid the subscription to be able to enjoy. But she's only home looking at TV maybe 2 or 3 hours any particular day. She works. She has to go shopping. She has to go take care of her mother, who's an elderly woman. Same thing goes with subscribing to software on the internet. I mean, if you use Office 360, well, you're not using Office 360 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You're using Office 360 when you need to use Word or Excel or Access or any of those types of programs. And isn't it curious? You used to be able to buy that program. I've got a copy of Microsoft Word 2000 that I continue to use, and I bought it, and I can install it on any machine that I want to. It's old and rusty, but it still kind of works. No, actually, I use LibreOffice now. I use a lot of open source stuff. Software, Office 360, MeisterTask, which is a type of organization board. I don't know what it's called, a Kimmel board, a Kendall board. Well, it's a way to organize work. I use that a lot for the podcast. I used it at the agricultural machinery business to control documentation for the machines that we imported from France and England and Hungary. LinkedIn Professional. Another thing, you can pay for the professional use of LinkedIn. You can use the free part, which is what I use. Right? You can pay for the professional, but you're not going to use it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And these things start accumulating. So all these people getting rid of Disney Plus, well, they've probably put a 10% dent in their subscription payments a month. It is no surprise to me that people are struggling to get by. So people unsubscribed from Disney, and it worked, and Jimmy Kimmel was put back on the air, but not really, because two companies. What are they called? Sinclair, which I've heard is run by a ultra-Christian family, and Nexstar. Well, they continue censoring, and with the same excuse, that sentence that Jimmy Kimmel said was offensive. And I'm going to give you that sentence again. The MAGA gang is desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. That to Sinclair and Nexstar continues to be offensive language in a sensitive time for the country. Won't go any further into that. Other people have said it more eloquently than me. That's a little bit like your cable company giving you the basics, HBO and MTV, but if you want that other, you have to pay a bit more. And Sinclair and Nexstar are asking for you to pay a bit more. Am I subscribed, and to what? The answer is no. A little bit. You could consider my water bill a subscription, but I pay that after the fact, so I'm paying for consumption. And the water is a real thing that I have, not one of these things like entertainment or a magazine that I probably should burn this in the stove, and the other 50 copies of it I have here in the bookshelves. I did subscribe to National Geographic and a consumer interest magazine about 20 years ago, but 1 year. National Geographic was voluntary. I wanted it. The other one, they kind of scammed me into buying a year's subscription, but both of them were canceled after a year. I didn't need them anymore. The drawing program that I use, I have paid one-time fee to get rid of publicity and one-time fee to have access to the text button or the text tool that they have in this program. I could have bought a subscription, which means I could have used all of the tools that they have. But since I don't use all of the tools that they have, and because a subscription you pay every month, but you don't use it all month, 24 hours, 7 days a week, like the electricity, I do pay a subscription for electricity. And that is kind of a subscription because it's a fixed fee. I will always pay the same fee. And if I'm paying more than I've actually used, they send me money back. And if I pay less than I've actually used, they will charge me a bit more. That sounds like a subscription. Everything else I do is free. You can get almost everything free. The podcast is on, well, it used to be Anchor. Now it's Spotify, but it's a free service. I don't have all of the bells and whistles that Spotify offers, the people who pay, but I don't care. I've only got, well, I'm not going to say how many subscribers I have. Go tell other people so I get more subscribers. YouTube, the same thing. I'm not paying for YouTube. I upload things to YouTube, and maybe they'll catch on, maybe they won't, but I'm not going to pay for YouTube. Substack, where I've got my notes written and where you can go if you want to see those notes. I don't pay for that service either. I didn't pay for WordPress when I was using WordPress. I've got friends who are podcasters as well who pay for all kinds of odd things like programs that automatically make transcripts or programs that cut out the I manually cut out every I do pay for my internet, which is $47 a month, more or less. That includes 2 cell phone lines, but I use the cell phone and so does my mate for a lot of internet stuff, so I'm going to count that as part of internet. But $47 a month. So I say when these people who want money so I can use MeisterTask or YouTube or Spotify to get all of those little bells and whistles, if they want money, well, why don't they go to my internet provider? They're getting a lot of money out of me. They get, I don't know, you multiply 47 by 12. I don't know if I've got a calculator open here. Yes, I'm going to bother to do it. Hold on a second, it won't take me long. Calculator, 47 times 12 it costs me $564 a year to have internet. They've already got more money than they can spend. I'm not giving them more. So I think I've made my point. Long live free speech. Go watch No Down Payment. Link in the description. Not really connected, but somehow connected to what I'm talking about here, if I'm talking about anything. Okay, tell your friends, listen, like, subscribe, and share. like the little ditty at the end will say.
Listen, like, subscribe, and share.
And this time, yes, we will see you in a fortnight and not just in 7 days. Nothing else to add. Cheers! I never drove a John Deere car. Basic feature of it is, basic feature of it all. Not very well written. Let's try it again. No. So, in any case, so Al Jazeera, as anything other than the one of them, everything's been said.
You're listening to Radio Rebel.